Hey, good looking.
What you got cooking?
Oh, that's folksy. Folksy is what that is.
Folks time.
All right. So, welcome to our season finale episode. This is going to be our last regular episode of 2018.
And we're going out with a bang.
We're going out with a bang. This is going to be a long episode. We've decided not to break it up into two because we are covering... I don't know, what would you call Freddie Mercury? A rock star, a legend,
incomparable.
Probably the only artist.
But just artist.
He's the only cis man that we have on our list of...
And deservedly so.
And so it might be the only cis man we ever do. Just fucking legend Freddie Mercury is who we're talking about today.
So shout out to our Empress supporters first. Jackie, Brenna, Maureen, Charity, Angelica, Sarah, Tiffany, Jared, Courtney, Kristen, Megan, Heather, Brendan, Melissa, Anastasia, and Kelly and Kate.
And shout out to our Queen Consort supporters, Jessica, Melissa, La Michelle, Aaron, Jose, Helene, Terry, Megan, Anna, Amanda, Kat, Yara, Alexis, Taylor, and Stephanie. And thank you to all of our listeners and all of our supporters on every tier.
We love you guys.
We love you guys.
So what we're drinking today is a drink called Fit for a Queen.
Ooh.
And it is vodka, shot of vodka, half a shot of Cointreau, half a shot of lemon juice, and we're putting a little bit of mineral water in there, and
so as to not burn our taste buds off.
Exactly. This is a long episode, so we're gonna water it down a little bit. A little secret sauce that I did in this one is I muddled some blueberries with the vodka to give it some blueberry vodka realness.
What is muddled? What is the process of muddling? If
you just grind it, like you get like a cup, and then I just get a spoon and grind it up in the spoon and the blueberries.
Do you talk like that when you're grinding?
You have to, because you're muddling something.
Well, it's very tasty. Thank you, Nathan. Cheers.
Cheers.
Clink. So, Freddie Mercury is known as flamboyant and amazing lead singer of the band Queen. He was a gay icon and the first major celebrity to die of AIDS.
Yes.
Though that's not true, but one of the first major celebrities to die of AIDS.
Yes, big poster child for the AIDS movement.
Yes.
So, he was born in September 5th of 1946. His formal name was Farrokh Bulsara. And he was born in Zanzibar!
Which, for the last 30 minutes, every other word Nathan and I have said to each other was Zanzibar.
I mean, it totally sounds like an alien planet where only rock stars are born. It completely does, and it's fitting for him.
Well, it's now actually part of Tanzania, which is in Africa, by Kenya and Uganda. But at the time, it was a British protectorate state.
Which is basically like a British colony.
Yeah. They had some autonomy, but they also had the protection of, the British Empire, which at the time, it was still kind of like the sun never sets at the British Empire. So.
Yeah, so his parents were Indian by birth, and they grew up near Bombay. They were what we would say Persian.
Yeah, and India at the time was also under British rule. Their family was really religious. They practiced the Zoroastrianism religion.
Yeah, I think it's Zoroastrianism.
We
both went down a rabbit hole in this. I did too.
It was really interesting because I've never heard of it before, but it's actually one of the oldest religions. It doesn't have a lot of people still practicing it.
No. And what I read is it was the first original religion to basically separate a good character versus an evil character.
And it was one of the first religions to be monotheism, right?
Yes, so there was one good guy, one bad guy.
It could possibly date back to as far as 2000 BC. So,
which is pretty fucking old.
Yeah, so it's interesting. He had a sister named Kashmira, which I just think is a really pretty name.
Yeah, it reminds me of Kashmir.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. His father had a really good job, and they were living in a big house with servants, and
they worked for the government, is what I read, and they were really well-to-do, high up in the government at that time.
The Bulsaras were doing just fine.
So Freddie, as a kid, and he was just a little ball of joy, happy little kid, and had a great little childhood. And something funny that I found out was like his baby photo actually won the photo of the year in Zanzibar. The photo that I sent you earlier today, that is the photo that won.
Is he like the little Gerber baby of 1946 Zanzibar?
Yes.
Aww.
So you remember that Shakespeare saying some are born great, some achieve greatness, some have greatness thrust upon them. Mm-hmm. Freddie said D, all of the above. So it was probably no surprise that Freddie always loved music.
He started piano lessons at around age 7.
And it was his aunt that was like, look, this kid has got some talent.
Yeah, this
like,
isn't normal how quick he's picking up on this.
Yeah, you need to get him into some piano lessons. And unsurprisingly, he was pretty rambunctious, always liked to be the center of attention.
Center of attention, yeah. Who would guess?
Right?
Anybody who's seen the Live Aid concert
knows that he's the center of attention. And he actually had
4 extra teeth.
I know.
In the back of his mouth. No, was it 4 teeth total? Or did he have like...
I think it was 4 extra teeth.
Total. Yes. In the back of his mouth.
So that gave him the bucktooth grin.
Yeah.
And...
Because he did, looking at some little kid pictures of him.
He's got a bucktooth.
Poor baby. Like, he never smiled with his mouth open.
But he's adorable.
No, he was adorable. But he never smiled with his mouth open because he was self-conscious.
And he always wanted to get it fixed, but he never did because he thought it would, like, affect his voice.
He thought it would affect his palate. But he thought, if I didn't have those back there... I might not be able to stretch my mouth open as wide, and it would fuck my range up.
Which makes sense, but
why mess with a good thing if you're adorable?
Just leave it alone.
Keep the buck
Leave it alone.
They're adorable.
So whenever he was 8 years old, he was sent to England in boarding school in Bombay.
He was sent to an English boarding school in Bombay.
Excuse me.
He went to the England in Bombay.
Yeah, there's
the little known England Island in India.
So the school's name was St. Peter's. I also read a story about his art teacher that he would go around the playground and call people darling, and it was boys and girls.
This doesn't surprise me one bit.
He'd be like, "Hey, darling," and she'd be
darling.
like, "You can't say that. Like British people, you don't say that to everybody that you meet."
And he's like, "Okay, darling."
Exactly. I loved it.
Freddie once said in an interview later, I was at boarding school for 9 years, so I didn't see my parents that often. That background helped me a lot because it taught me to fend for myself. And in the future, he would spend so much time on the road, which you hear a lot of musicians and just people that spend a lot of time on the road talk about being lonely. So I think it just prepared him on how to make friends in uncomfortable situations. Yes. And I think it was good for him.
Yeah, so the school that he went to would have taught the regular students back in the 1950s what they would have learned at that time.
Yeah.
But his
music... math and history and also it was a Christian school.
Yeah.
Which I found interesting since they weren't Christians, but it must have just been like, what's the best school we can send him to?
Yeah, I mean, they worked for the British government, so they wanted to send him to the tippity-top schools.
Yeah, and of course, if it was a British school, it was going to be a Christian school.
But even in school, his music teachers, like, realized, oh my gosh, this kid is full of talent.
That's when
oozing talent.
They realized that he could play by ear. He could play piano by ear. Mm-hmm. Like, he'd hear something on the radio.
Very difficult to do.
No, I'm sure. I couldn't do it.
So Freddie didn't just do music. He was actually good at sports, soccer in particular.
He did boxing. He acted in plays. Mm-hmm. At age 12, he was voted best all-around student.
And please look at the photo if you have the chance.
Please Google the picture. Well, maybe we can put it up on Instagram later.
He's adorable.
It's 12-year-old Freddie sitting in front of his big trophy he got for being best all-around student with his little buck teeth and his little boarding school costume.
I just want to take him home.
He just looks so pleased with himself.
And be like, you did such a good job. Thank you. So what we're getting at is that he had a really good education, super smart, super popular. That's where we're going.
Really good start to life. Yeah.
So in boarding school, Freddie formed his first band called the Hectics. And they started their rehearsals in the school theater, which is just like, be still my heart. He's such a little cute kid.
They played at like every school function, dances, parties, birthday parties, whatever.
And Freddie was like really into Western culture.
Yeah, he wanted to play the Beatles. He wanted to play Elvis. Mm-hmm. He wasn't interested so much in his Indian heritage, which I think we'll see a lot later. Also, this time he started going by Freddie instead of Farouk. So he was really interested in clinging on to, like, I'm at a British school. This is where the best schools are from. Let me lean into this.
So his music teacher even thought, this music is kind of noise and it's louder than what I'm used to, but realized, wow, He's really catchy. Like,
Yeah.
his lyrics were really catchy, and the way that he performed was really catchy.
And I'm sure even as a kid he was charismatic.
Yeah.
Even though I doubt he was at these concerts in the 8th grade prancing around in leotards or anything like that. Maybe. I don't know. I have not seen the pictures from the school dances that he played.
But the band, the Hectics, eventually just kind of broke up, disbanded after
Because they were
school,
children.
And they're kids. But Freddie, got his dipped his toe into the pool.
He caught the bug.
He dipped his toe into the pool of performance.
So, Freddie moves back to Zanzibar with his family in 1963. He's 16.
There was like this huge crisis in Zanzibar. I think it was like a revolt.
It was a revolution because the British Empire left Zanzibar, Tanzania altogether, and whenever that happened, I guess there was a lot of people, Arabic and Indian people living there, who had the jobs like Freddie's dad had, and who were running the government. And as soon as the British Empire pulled out, the Africans were like, oh no, we're done being your servants. We're done being your maids.
We're taking over now.
We're taking our land back. And luckily, Freddie's family did get out in time. They got out they realized, oh, there's unrest. Let's GTFO.
Let's jet out here.
And not everybody was so lucky. There was a lot of Indians and Arabic people were killed.
And it's a really fucking scary time for your family.
Yeah.
So let's go.
If you ever do want to go into a rabbit hole, we don't have time to really cover it here, but the Zanzibar Revolution is really interesting.
So Freddie's family ended up moving to London as a result of all this.
Not like dead smack in London. It was
No.
Essex. No, Sussex.
Sussex.
Middlesex. They moved to Middle.
They just moved to Sexy Town.
They've all sexist. No, they moved to Middlesex.
Yes.
I had to ask my husband. I was like, "Am I saying that right? Middlesex?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" And I'm like, "It just sounds
like you're bisexual."
I was thinking like in a threesome. Like, who's the person in the middle?
Katie getting kinky.
So, but no, Middlesex isn't far from London.
No, yeah,
but
it's right next to it.
England altogether was way more expensive than Zanzibar, so they had been living in a mansion with servants, and now they're living in like a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah,
and it was still a nice middle class house, but
yeah, they're not poor.
Yeah, and also London in the 60s.
Perfect place to be.
Oh my God, there was so much going on in the music scene.
And he was like, if I'm going to make something at this time, you can too. Let's go to London. Let's live our best life.
Yeah.
And so Freddie enrolls in school, which we would say college.
Yeah. He first had to go basically what we would call like a community college for a couple of years and get some credits. And during that time, he took a couple of weird little side jobs. He worked at London Heathrow. He worked at bars and restaurants and stuff. I read this one story when he was working at London Heathrow in a packing office or something. He would tell people oh, I'm a musician, so I don't want to lift that because it might mess up my hands.
He'd
be like, my delicate hands.
I love him.
And so he'd get everybody else to do his work.
Yes. A true queen.
Yes. So then after basically getting his basics at community college.
Yeah, he started studying in graphic design and illustration. Mm-hmm. And I saw some sketches that he did. I saw a few sketches that he did. And primarily the ones that I saw were just sketches of famous people like Paul McCartney, Jimi Hendrix, Cleopatra. By Cleopatra, I mean Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra.
Cleopatra. Yeah.
And they were really good. His lines and his shading and coloring. I mean, he was a great graphic designer.
It's interesting to think if things hadn't gone how they did.
I think he would have been an artist.
Yeah,
I definitely do. I think it's just coursing in his blood. There's no way around it.
So while he was in school, a fellow design major was in this band called Smile, and he invited Freddie to come to a couple of their shows.
So 2 of the musicians in Smile were these guys named Brian May and Roger Taylor. You may need to know
Maybe you've
those.
heard of them before.
Maybe.
Freddie really hit it off with them and formed a friendship and would hang out with them, even besides going to shows.
And Brian May is ridiculous.
Brian
on the
May
guitar.
is stupid talented, not just at playing the guitar. He's also got a doctorate in astrophysics or something.
Yeah, he's a musician too. Like
he's like
songwriter,
crazy talented.
Insane.
And so him and Freddie really hit it off because they were both so innovative, and not just because they were both, amateur musicians, but just their personalities.
And they were definitely a victim of the opposites attract.
Very much, because Brian May is very much a jeans and t-shirt, and let me just sit in the back of the room and play my guitar.
And Freddie's just like, get me out into the open. And it's time for a party.
And he's like, oh, darling, you just stay there and play your guitar.
Darling.
Let me put on this leotard.
But Smile didn't really need a singer or a piano player at the time, so he just kind of showed up at their shows and hung out, watched them, and was like, wow, they're pretty good.
He did dabble with other bands and collaborate here and there, but none of them really, took off and were that serious.
So, funny story. When he was in a band called Ibex, he had a performance, and the bottom of his microphone just, broke off. So he has,
the stand?
The bottom of the microphone stand just breaks off. So Freddie is just walking around, and he's like, well, what am I going to do with this? I'm just going to walk around with half a mic stand in my hand.
And so if you ever, that's kind of became his thing.
Yeah.
So that's where it all started.
His
that was pre-Queen.
Thing.
PQ, pre-Queen.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
There you go.
So after college, he moved in with Roger Taylor, the drummer from Smile.
Which also, y'all should go to Roger Taylor's Instagram. He's only got 7 pictures. He's not super active. But he has these pictures, these Polaroids of him and Freddie from 1969 or something. They are so young and happy. And in the comments, he was like, 2 drunk guys or whatever, so I guess also drinking lots and it just warms my heart. So go look at that. Yeah, so Freddie and Roger open up a little shop, this pop-up shop in London. You'll see a lot of basically a bunch of different kiosks.
Yeah.
They were selling really anything they could get their hands on. They were selling Freddie's original art, which, you know what? If somebody saved one of Freddie's original drawings...
Oh, I think they took some of those sketches that I was talking about earlier. Obviously, they saved them.
I wonder how much those are worth now.
Millions, probably.
Yeah. They were selling vintage clothes. Freddie really developed a love of Victorian fashion at this time. So he'd try to get Victorian-style clothes. And people are surprised when he became gay.
Yeah, right.
He came out as gay.
Yeah. So around this time, whenever he was working and selling the clothing at the pop-up shop, Mary Austin, who also worked at a nearby upscale boutique, just happened to bump into them. And he and her fell in love instantly.
Oh, but wait. Isn't Freddie famously gay?
Okay, so Freddie is gay, but...
He's a gay icon, but I think Freddie shows... that I think today he would be considered pansexual.
So yeah, I can agree with that. I think that he at that time it was, when you're born in the 1940s, being gay is punishable by crime in Britain.
No, at this time, have you ever seen The Imitation Game?
Yeah,
that Turing guy who saved us from the Nazis, but then it found out he was gay, and if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, and they had him chemically castrated. Yep. I think it quit being a crime in 65, 66 in
so
the
you
UK.
You don't come out and admit that you're gay. It's not something that you
and we'll circle back and talk about his sexuality more in depth later, but regardless, him and this woman, Mary Austin,
they loved each other,
fell in love, and maybe she'll be important for the rest of his life. I don't know.
So in 1970, Freddie got his little shop, a girlfriend, playing gigs here and there, having a good time. And then Smile's singer just happened to drop out. And Brian May and Roger Taylor asked Freddie, hey man, you want to join?
And Freddie was like, oh my god, yes! I've been sitting around waiting for you to ask me for 2 fucking years! Yes, I want to join your band. Oh my god, duh! Direct quote.
that is verbatim.
Direct quote. Except there was probably more darlings. Yes, darling.
I've been hanging around, darling. So he's like, okay, I am finally the fucking frontman. I am finally the lead singer of this band.
Me, Freddie Bulsara. And he's like, wait.
That doesn't have a ring to it.
That doesn't. Basara, nope. Needs something more epic. Let me think of the periodic table. Freddie Iron? No. Freddie Potassium?
No.
Freddie Mercury!
Oh my God, win! Miss May.
So, in Miss May's class, you had to pick...
I hated her. Sorry.
Oh, I hated chemistry, so I hated her by proxy. I had nothing against her personally.
One of our Patreon supporters is Sarah Lofton.
Y'all were in
she's
that
like,
together?
yeah, we both hate Miss May. Anyway.
I hated science, so I had nothing against her.
Love you, Sarah.
Nothing against her personally. I just... Anyway, but at the beginning of the year, we had to pick something like an element off the periodic table. And that was like our theme for the whole year. And I picked Mercury. Like I was the very first person.
Oh my gosh, I can see you.
I ran down the hallway. I was the very first person there to pick my element. And
Mercury.
I picked Mercury so I could have Freddie Mercury on my locker for the whole year.
I can totally see it. Oh my God.
Where were we?
His relationship with Mary was, really hitting it off at that time, so they moved in together.
He brings her home to meet his family, and if he's ever had any other girlfriends of note, like...
They didn't know about
It's very possible that this is the first and only girl he's ever brought home to meet his family, and they love her. I mean, what's not to like? She is... And she was pretty, she was kind. Her parents were both deaf, so she, like... That kind of
That's
like almost
deep.
Yeah,
That's
that
deep.
kind of almost makes you automatically have like a nurturing quality about you, which
and also appreciation for sound
and
music.
Yeah. So yeah, they were like the Balsuras met her. They were like, marry her now.
Yeah.
Put
Please
a
and
fucking
thank you.
ring on it.
And then he's like, hey, Mom and Dad, by the way, I dropped the Balsara last name, and I'm going by Mercury now.
And they're just like, ugh.
What?
Farrak.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Pourquoi?
They're not French.
I know. But you just said qu'est-ce que c'est?
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the band have this new flamboyant singer.
He was very camp.
That means I love him.
From the get-go. And Mary wasn't stupid. I think from the beginning, she probably had...
Suspicions.
I
I honestly think if you took me and put me back in that time era, I probably would have, had a serious girlfriend, and... Because it's just a time period type of thing.
Like in high school when you had that girlfriend that went to the other high school?
Yeah. Katie, shut the fuck up.
She was not real.
So, back on track. Stop talking about me, Katie.
So their band's, they're getting more gigs because you've got this crazy, stupid, talented guitar player. You've got this over-the-top, flamboyant singer who has a 5-octave range voice.
It's 4.
4?
So I read it and it's 4, which, okay.
The average singer has 3.
3. And if you're to look at a piano, an entire piano it's like 6 octaves. Like, it's close to that. So he could sing the majority of the piano. Like, that's a big deal. Like, a 4-octave range, that is insane.
That is insane.
Insane.
So, they're getting gigs, and then their bassist drops out. So in 1971, they find a new bassist, this guy named John Deacon.
May be important.
And now Queen has formed.
Except they weren't called Queen.
They weren't called Queen yet, but all the members are in place. So let's talk about the members.
So Brian May is, like we said earlier, incredible guitar player, incredible songwriter.
And he also sang. Like, he wasn't...
Insanely intelligent.
Brian May is actually a pretty good singer, just when you got Freddie Mercury in the band.
And might I...
Nobody wants to hear you sing when you got Freddie Mercury.
And might I say, he's got the fro.
He's got a very 70s look.
Yeah. It's like a mullet... curly afro.
It was very
thing.
of the time. He's rocking it. He's having a good time.
So then the other one, the drummer,
Roger Taylor. Y'all Google young Roger Taylor right now and tell... I'm sorry. All our female listeners, I'm sorry, he's prettier than you. He's prettier than me. He is the prettiest girl in the world, except he is a boy.
Panties drop.
Like, so he's a drummer. He can also sing, and he also writes songs. And as I stated, very, 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 very pretty.
So like we also mentioned a little bit earlier, John Deacon, the bassist, he's
the quiet one of the band.
He's like the Chris of NSYNC.
John Deacon was a very talented bassist, and he was quieter, but he wrote songs as well. He's the only one... You know, Queen still tours with Adam Lambert as the singer, and John Deacon's the only original, like, well, obviously besides Freddie Mercury, but John Deacon's the only one that's not in it anymore. Yeah. After which I think makes sense to me, because he's just like, no, I've made my money, I've been in my big famous band, I just want to stay at home and go fishing, or whatever.
Or stay at home and watch Netflix on my couch.
Yeah, he's a chill dude.
So they're in a new band. And they're like, man, we need a new name. What's our name going to be?
And Freddie suggests Queen.
And they're like, wait, whoa. Freddie, don't you think that's going to draw some attention to you being a little in the hoo-ha? Like,
what he means by that is gay. You didn't?
Yes.
And he had some choice hand gestures to go with that.
Katie's scarred for life.
Oh.
Sorry about it.
You know, like we discussed, not a lot of people are openly gay at this time. David Bowie hadn't really done the bisexual thing yet.
Yeah, and Elton John was like still dating women.
Yeah, but Freddie was dead set on it, and he's like, no, it's... And being that we have a podcast called Queen's Podcast, I have to agree that it's a good name. He's like, it's strong. Queens are strong and powerful people.
Amen.
And he's like, it's patriotic. We're British. And then he's like, and then it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, because I'm a little gay.
A little hoo-ha and the people.
Yep. That's going to be the tagline for this episode. Freddie Mercury, hoo-ha and the people. It's not. That's horribly disrespectful.
Yeah, right. So Freddie also ended up designing the logo for Queen. Yeah. Which was 2 lions, 2 fairies, and a crab, because they're crab people.
And the word Queen.
Yes. And so if you didn't know, that was a play on the astrological signs.
Yeah, it's all their signs.
Yeah, so it's 2 Leos, Virgos, and 1 Cancer.
Yeah.
After they named their band Queen, they got a fucking record deal in 1972. Like, big fucking deal. BFG. So Queen gets in the studio. Okay, let's be honest. It's like a couple different studios that they record in at the time. And they start recording their first album, which was self-titled
Queen. I mean, it's powerful.
So while the album was, pretty well received by the critics, it didn't really take off on the charts. It wasn't like a number 1 selling thing.
But they're like, okay, well, let's get the name out there. Let's start touring.
It's time to make some money, honey.
So in 1973, they go on tour opening for Mott the Hoople.
Just a UK tour.
It was just a UK, but it was 31 shows in 2 months, which sounds exhausting.
Right, get me to the bed.
And they also got to go on Top of the Pops because David Bowie dropped out.
Thanks, David. Thank you, David.
So they did this song called Seven Seas Awry, which I think is kind of a deep... It's not one that it's not a Queen song you're going to hear on the radio all the time. I think it is on their greatest hits album.
Yeah, it is.
It's not one that just a casual Queen fan probably knows. Freddie says when he goes back and looks at it, he was just like, oh, we were trying so hard.
He's such a diva.
I know. He was like, what was I doing? We were trying... But they were nobodies. Tops of the Pop was a really popular show at the time.
But obviously, he didn't do that bad because... fucking famous.
Yeah. Go on YouTube and try to find it. It's really poor quality, but you can tell it's their first time on TV. Yeah, I think, but it's a great song. So
they ended up back in around Christmas time. They moved back, and Freddie and Mary moved into a big flat, one that they were sharing.
They weren't sharing with 4 other people, because before they had been sharing a house with Roger Taylor and 1 other guy.
La vie boheme.
And Freddie proposes to her with an emerald engagement ring, which I have an aquamarine engagement ring.
I like the non-traditional.
Like
the not the diamond and
in his extra fashion, the way that he proposed it, he gave her like this big box. And so she opens it up, and there's a smaller box in it. And then she opens that up, and down, like
He's
Russian doll style.
Queen. Yes,
until it gets to a ring box. And he proposed, and she said yes. And yeah, it's a very sweet moment for them.
Very extra.
Very extra. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and freshen our drinks. And you want to hear from a podcast that we love? Because you're about to. Here's a word from Get Grim Podcast.
Get it, girl.
Get it.
Hello, I'm Kayla Knight, the host of Get Grim, a weekly podcast for the miniature folklorist or teller of tales in your life. Each week, I adventure to adapt several tales around a central theme and share them with my audience, along with my own commentary and background on each story. New episodes are released every Saturday, and I can be found on Apple iTunes or on your favorite podcast app.
And we're back.
So, next album,
next tour. Let's go.
A lot like our other Queen episodes, whenever they're popping out babies, he's popping out albums.
Yeah. Year after year, like every year, there is a new album. So their second album was called Queen 2.
Which wasn't really received very well.
No, it didn't really do anything on the charts, and the critics didn't love it. But regardless, they add some America shows, like shows in America for the first time.
And that's a big deal because I think it was a stigma. If you want to make it big, you have to make it big in America.
And I think it still is.
Yeah.
Because there's still British musicians who gauge their success on if they break it in America. So they go to America for the first time. Sadly, that tour had to be cut short because Brian May contracted hepatitis.
And no, it wasn't from the way that you thought.
He was so fucking sick. Like, he thought, like, maybe he just had, like, because he was sweating a lot, and he thought, like...
the flu, something like that. I'm just
No,
sick.
he had to be quarantined. It was... like, he could have died.
So he got it from
getting a hepatitis vaccine!
Yes!
Like, he went to a clinic in the UK back... there's completely different standards on needles and stuff now at clinics. But back then, it was much more lax. And he contracted hepatitis because he went to get a hepatitis vaccine. And they used a needle that had been used on somebody who already had hepatitis.
What? Gross. So Freddie's like, okay, we're wasting time for him to get better.
We can't just sit around waiting for him to get better. But poor Brian May is just sitting there in quarantine in America,
getting in his head thinking that, oh my God, they're going to replace me.
And that was never in anybody's mind.
No, they just like, what's always in Freddie's mind is, let's make music.
The show must go on. So what they did is they recorded... Yes. Which is also a Queen song. The show must go on. So they recorded everybody else's parts. And then when Brian was better, they were like, okay, well, we left this part open for you. So you play this.
So this album was called Sheer Heart Attack. And it was released in 1974. So this is
2 albums in 1 year.
Yeah, that's a lot, guys.
These guys are busting their asses. Also, do yourself a favor real quick and Google the cover of this album. Because does it not look like they just got done with an orgy?
Yeah, like they just snorted a bunch of cocaine and were like, hey, let's touch each other.
It's sexy.
Make it a good Saturday night.
What is Roger Taylor pointing at? Queen?
I don't know, but his body, Anyway. Katie and Nathan are sidetracked.
So, the most famous song from this album is Killer Queen.
That has to be like one of my top favorite songs.
Oh, me too.
I love it. Like,
I'm going to say that about every song.
I know, but that is definitely like in the top 3.
And this song, well, you were not alone because this song hit number 2 on the UK charts.
Woo woo.
So it was like their first big hit.
Rightfully fucking so.
And they were on Top of the Pops again, which you can find this episode of Top of the Pops much easier and much better quality on YouTube.
YouTube.
And it is such a quintessential Freddie performance. He's got a fur coat on.
Oh my God.
He's got the eyeliner.
Yes.
He's got the hand motions down.
And it is 100% about a high-dollar prostitute. High-dollar hoe.
100%. I did see this one documentary with like an old music promoter who swears Freddie told him the song was about him. But don't buy it for a second.
No.
No,
It's about a high-dollar hoe.
This is, yeah, no. Oh, God, I love that song.
I know. It has to be in my top 3.
I think in our Marie Antoinette episode, there was a couple of times where I was like, just like Marie Antoinette. Like the song. Anyway, so another tour. Because again, they're young, they're just up and coming. People forget about you quickly. So it's like, gotta go. We're building traction. Let's go on another tour. They went to UK, Germany, Japan, and the US. About 80 shows in a year. That was his first time to go to Japan. They had a huge following in Japan.
Yeah.
And he actually kind of fell in love with the culture there. And sometimes you will see pictures from them performing in the 70s where he wears a kimono, and I love it. It's
Kimono, she better don't. What? I don't know. I'm speaking in tongues, Katie. So Mary ended up quitting her job at the time so she could go spend some time with them.
Yeah, so she would tour with them when she could, and then like go back and basically she kind of started being like his manager. Not manager, but like they'd have fan mail coming in, so she'd answer the fan mail and like make sure the bills were paid on time and stuff like that.
She's definitely like their manager / like
his beard.
PR. Yeah, a beard. Yeah. Totally.
Because like people were always like, is that guy gay? And they're like, no, there's his fiance, and so
if you like he would put a ring on it.
So like she really did act as people going, oh well then okay, that just must be a stage act, him acting so gay, because there's his beautiful female fiance, you know?
Oh, there's his wife.
Yeah. Though, sadly, when she wasn't around, it's almost certain that Freddie was, like, fucking some guys.
Obviously.
Like, some roadies and stuff.
And Mary had obviously heard of these rumors.
She's not stupid.
Knew about what...
She's not stupid. She knew that he was She knew he wasn't being a saint when she wasn't around.
Yeah.
You know?
So, at this time, they're recording a whole lot. They're recording at, like, 6 different studios, bouncing around in the middle of the night, you know, having a crazy time trying to get all this thing together. So, they end up recording what we know now of Bohemian Rhapsody.
We're not going to go into great detail about Bohemian Rhapsody.
This is another hour. You could talk an hour about Bohemian Rhapsody.
There are hour-long documentaries on YouTube just dedicated to Bohemian Rhapsody and what it means. Let's just kind of do our quick little recap. Freddie gets this song in his head, and he doesn't know what it is yet, but he's obsessed with it. He creates a headboard for his bed that's a piano, so that he can like wake up in the middle of the night. Like I just imagine him being like haunted by it. Like wake up in the middle of the night, write a little bit, go back to bed, wake up again, write a little bit more. It turns out to be a 6-minute long song.
And it's like 3 songs in one.
I really do believe it is 3 different songs. There's the slow ballad about like a cowboy, like Mama just killed a man.
Yeah, and that's what Brian May and Roger Taylor ended up calling the cowboy song. Yeah. They literally called it the cowboy song.
And then there's the opera with Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia.
Yep.
And then there's like a headbanging rock song. And it was just Freddie's baby. And the rest of the band, they literally, until like a week before the album was put out, they didn't have a name for the song. They just called it Freddie's Thing.
Yes.
Like they would just come into the studio and they'd be like, what do you want us to do for your thing today? And he'd be like, all right, you're going to go over there and play like this hard rock thing. And then I'm going to come over here and sing some opera. And like it was all recorded out of order. So nobody knew what the fuck was going on in his head. And they're recording a whole other album around him just coming in one day and being like,
la, la, la.
We're scrapping that opera part from yesterday and putting this new opera part in. And they're just like, okay, Freddie, whatever.
And everybody's like, this is
It's like, so long as we're still getting all the other songs recorded, fine.
Just let him do his thing.
Just fine. At the end, Bohemian Rhapsody becomes the last song on their new album, Night at the Opera, which is what a bougie name for... like, they're trying to be... What I love about Queen is, like, in the midst of everybody trying to be hard rock, they can hard rock, but they can also call their album Night at the Opera.
Yeah, they gave it a soft...
Darling.
A soft name,
It's a bougie
darling.
name, is what it is.
Darling.
And so the band was dead set on Bohemian Rhapsody being the new song, or like the first single song to come off the album. And everyone's like, nope, not.
They thought it was crazy, it was crap, it was not going to last. It's
Elton
6 minutes.
John.
Elton John said that it was like, please don't
Elton
release
John
this.
called Freddie and said, if you release this as a single, you're going to be the laughingstock of the music industry. And it is probably the only time I will ever say this. I'm glad he didn't listen to Elton John.
Katie, that's a bombshell.
Freddie and the band, that's what I love, is the whole band was just like,
No, we're not going to
Freddie
listen
had a
to them.
vision, and this is different, and no one else is doing something like this, so this needs to be the fucking single.
Good, because it was a fucking hit.
It was, I mean, it still is a huge hit.
I read that there was like a specific DJ that would only play that song every single day.
Freddie made friends with like a local DJ who was also closeted gay.
Yeah, and was
like,
oh my gosh, play the song.
And so the band was then like it was getting some traction. It was getting some interest, and then the band was like, we want to make a video. And back then, you know,
that
MTV
wasn't the
wasn't
thing. Yeah.
People made promotional
music
videos,
yeah.
but they were like usually just videos of the band playing. It's not videos like we know today. And so the average video back then, music video, cost about $500. And so when Freddie went to their record label and was like, we want $5,000. They were like, you meant 500, right?
Right.
He's like, no, I meant 5,000. And
are you sure?
And they were just like, absolutely not.
Yeah, no thank you.
And he was like, look, if you don't see a return on your investment, I will personally pay you back.
And the record company's like, okay, it's all on you, Freddie.
It's all on you. You got this. We would not have music videos, as you know. If there was no Bohemian Rhapsody video, there would have been no Thriller video.
No MTV.
There would have been no MTV.
No MTV.
There wouldn't have been the concept for it.
Thanks, Fred.
Bohemian Rhapsody blows up. The video blows up.
Boom.
They go to number 1 in the UK. I think they're in like the top 10, top 5 in the US. The whole album was a fucking hit. And Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't the only like song that...
No, there's a ton of songs in there.
You know that
great.
song, Ooh, You're My Best Friend.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, You're Making Me Live. John Deacon.
Katie can sing this for hours and hours.
John Deacon actually wrote that for his then girlfriend, now wife.
Get it, John Deacon.
Yeah. There's a gorgeous ballad on that album called Love of My Life, which Freddie wrote for Mary. And then there's a song called The Prophet Song, which isn't like super famous, but it's like nuts and I love it. It's like about like the end of the world or whatever. And like they talk about like Noah's Ark. It's bananas. Listen to it. So
but wait, I have to mention that Freddie with Bohemian Rhapsody, he didn't really like to perform the song.
Because he'd have to sit behind the piano.
Yeah,
and when he performed, he didn't want to be behind a piano.
Yeah, confined.
He wanted to be dancing in the middle of the stage.
So anyway,
they went on tour, and
they're making cash, honey.
Oh,
money, honey.
Money, honey. They are banking. But it was on this tour that Freddie started sleeping regularly with somebody. Like he had hookups here and there with guys, but this was like his first, and they never became like boyfriends, but you know, his regular fuck buddy. And so
sign me up.
But that's when he realized, he was like, okay, I need to tell Mary about this.
Yeah, and Mary was, you know, she kind of knew what was happening. She was
It could have
cool
been
with
worse.
It. Yeah.
She was more or less cool with. Obviously, it's going to hurt your feelings when you find out your partner of 6 years is
not
sleeping with somebody else.
Yeah, they're
regardless
not
if it's a
with
man or a woman.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's going to hurt your feelings regardless of your suspicions. But she didn't... I mean, she stayed a fixture in his life for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
so.
And he literally went to her and was like, hey, I'm bisexual.
And she went, no, Freddie, you're gay.
It's kind of like similar to what happened with me. It's like, no, Nathan, you're gay.
Oh, honey. Sweetie,
and
honey.
their romantic relationship was gone at that point.
So Freddie bought a house in Kensington, London. So Mary was still in their old apartment. And Freddie kind of looked around. He was like, why do I get this big house? And just because I cheated on her, she has to stay in an apartment. So
That's not fair.
He was like, you know what? Let me upgrade you. And
Let me upgrade you.
So he bought her a really nice flat, like 2 blocks from him.
And guess what she did? She took care of his cats.
I know. Like, she was already kind of like managing his personal life, and it just stepped up a notch because his career had stepped up a notch. So she was like answering his fan mail, paying his bills, and at this point he had like 3 or 4 cats. So he would like call. He would call whenever he was out of town and be like, put the cats on the phone. So she was dealing with that.
I remember like the names of his cat was like Tom, Jerry, get it?
Yeah.
Like, and he had some biblical references. Like, he obviously loved his cats.
He loved. But in the end, there was no hard feelings with their breakup.
She was his assistant for the rest of his life.
She was his best friend for the rest of his life. So yeah, let's discuss his sexuality. His parents were super conservative and still alive, so he refused to talk about his personal life in the press.
It makes sense. That generation, you just didn't talk about that. It wasn't...
And yes, he slept with a lot of dudes and really embraced the gay culture, but he never described himself as gay. He told people... there's this podcast that I listen to called Dead Rock Stars, and it's these, y'all should definitely listen to it if you have an interest in classic rock. It's these 2 rock reporters that were, like, reporting on stories for Rolling Stone and shit back in, like, the 60s and 70s. And one of them, they did a Freddie Mercury episode, and one of them was like, I was friends with Freddie, and I talked to him at a party once about, like, you're sleeping with that girl, but I thought you were sleeping with that guy last week. And he's like, darling, I'll fuck anything that moves.
So true.
And as I said, I think he would be considered pansexual these days. Like, he probably leaned more towards men, but...
So my theory is, the Kinsey scale is 0 to 6. 0 is 100% gay. 0 is 100% straight. Mm-hmm. 6 is 100% gay. Freddie's a solid 4.
Okay.
Like, he's not 100% bisexual.
I can get on board with that.
He leans to guys.
Yeah.
He will still have sex with girls all day long, but he leans
There's
to the
another
dick.
podcast I listen to.
He leans to the peen.
I can't remember it right now. If people ask, y'all message us and I'll send the link to you. So there's this podcast with this woman who's like a psychic.
I remember you telling me about this.
And she has an episode about saying that she like communicated with Freddie from beyond, and she does an interview with him from beyond, and it's parts of it are kind of slow because she does a lot of stopping and talking about like Harry Potter or something, and I'm just like, move on. You're talking to Freddie Mercury. Why are you talking about
Harry Potter?
But and so, like, I don't know how much salt you can put into this, but I found it really interesting that she said that he would be like, oh, when we were on the road, you could never get a good home-cooked meal, so I would always go home with ladies so they'd cook me a meal in the morning. And I'd be like, hey, you got to sleep with Freddie Mercury? I got some good scrambled eggs the next day.
And you know he was sitting at the table going, darling, this is a fabulous
darling,
meal.
it's a fabulous meal. Anyway.
So Freddie was known for being over the top, absolutely daring, just didn't take any chance, like, just went with it.
But at parties, it was different. Like, if he didn't know anybody at a party, he would kind of sit in the corner, assess the situation, see if any of his friends were showing up, not necessarily be the center of attention. But if it was a party with all people he knew,
he was out loud and proud.
Then he was always center stage, being like, "Look at me, let me tell this story." I can relate to that. I think I'm kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he definitely had a different persona publicly than how he lived in like his life. So anyway, back to the music.
They're huge stars.
They are
huge at this time.
They are huge. Over the next 3 years, they put out 3 albums and do 3 major tours, which again sounds exhausting.
So Somebody to Love, which
so the songs from those 3 albums that they put out in 3 years, the bangers that you know, are Somebody to Love,
which was influenced by Aretha Franklin, and thank you.
Yes.
Great song.
Yeah, so Freddie saw Aretha do gospel music, and he was like, I want to write a gospel song. And it's like he just had an epiphany. And I read...
and it turned into Somebody, Somebody, Somebody.
So I read this one review of that song where, it was a modern day review, and people who write modern day reviews don't, hindsight is 20/20. They didn't realize it was going to be such a classic. But they wrote it off just being like, it's like Freddie was just trying to recreate Bohemian Rhapsody because of all the layered voices and everything.
Okay.
I mean, fine.
No.
No, but even if he was just trying to recreate Bohemian Rhapsody...
Still genius.
It's still an amazing song. I mean, the opening... like that a cappella, and it does feel very gospel-y. Oh, it's gorgeous.
And he also created another 2 songs that you may or may not heard of, We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions.
Oh, maybe I've heard them before. Actually, I think Brian May was probably more instrumental in writing
the songs.
But still, he wrote for Freddie to sing. He knew, he was like, if there's any voice to be like an anthem,
it's his.
It's Freddie. Yeah.
And the other songs that he wrote was
Fat Bottom Girls, You Make the Rockin' World Go Round.
And Bicycle, Bicycle, I like to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike.
And then also during this time, they put out the song Don't Stop Me Now. Fun fact, Don't Stop Me Now is scientifically the most upbeat song ever. Yeah, a real neuroscientist did a study in 2013 to determine the song that made the most people happy. And of all the songs they sampled, they tested heart rate, they tested brain frequencies, everything. And the song, out of all the songs they tested across the board, Queen's Don't Stop Me Now made the people the happiest.
Don't stop me now.
It's on my running mix.
Having a good time. I'm having a good time.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic fucking song.
But by this last tour in 1978, they were getting a little tired, and it kind of showed. If you've been touring for the last year.
Well, no, they what has it been, 6 years since they had a break?
Years and years, Katie.
Of course they were starting to show that they were tired.
Can you blame them?
So Queen in popular culture at this time, by the very late 70s and early 80s, they were starting to be viewed as a band on the decline. Punk was picking up.
Yeah, and they were a little too campy for punk.
They were a little too bougie for punk.
Yeah, they were.
Well, you know what? Everything's too bougie for punk.
Love bougie.
Yeah. Freddie did not mind one bit that he was viewed as pretentious.
No.
At all. It was around this time, Freddie was prancing around in leotards, and he did a performance with the London Ballet Company. The fucking Royal Ballet Company.
Yeah.
And he's in his tights, and he's singing, and Google the pictures. It is the gayest thing.
Yeah, it totally is, and I love it.
I love it. And he told an interview, he was like, I'm trying to bring ballet to the masses, darling.
Yes, darling.
And of course, the Sex Pistols are over there being like, the fuck?
Oh, what the hell are you talking
There's
about?
a really funny story of, so Freddie did not care for punk rock one bit, which...
I'm not surprised.
There's no melody, there's no...
It's too grungy.
There's a few punk bands I like, so I can't say...
Yeah, I like punk
But
too.
for Freddie, not so much.
Not his jam.
And there's a story about like the Sex Pistols and Queen were recording at the same studio, and Sid Vicious comes in and is like, Freddie, you're trying to bring ballet to the masses. And what did he call him? He was like, oh, Mr. Ferocious.
Yes, it was Mr. Ferocious. It's like, oh, Mr. Ferocious.
And which like was a slap in the face to Sid Vicious because they were so famous at this point that he was like
Sid Vicious, Sid Ferocious.
He was like, oh, Mr. Ferocious.
Love it. He's never too shy.
So Freddie didn't mind being pretentious, but
at this time, this is whenever he really like changed his image.
Yeah.
So they had an album that came out, and they had a few photos in the album, and he ditched because up until now he'd been wearing the leotards, long hair, dramatic, and that's all very 70s. But we're moving into the 80s at this point, and Freddie was like heavily influenced by the 80s culture.
Gay culture specifically the American gay culture.
Yes, and so he donned on the
short hair,
tight jeans,
mustache.
Yes, and so
like tank top.
It was a very like think middle class American man, working guy sort of image.
The guy from the look was called the Clone,
and that's from the cop character, the gay cop character from The Village People.
Yeah, how he had the mustache and wore the tight pants and everything.
His name is Glenn Hughes, so that's where it's directly drawn from. But it's like the mustache with like the short, tight pants with the little tank top. And
also the mustache covered his buck teeth. So he did a lot more smiling, showing his teeth then.
It also hid his killer cheekbones.
I know, that is such a...
it's a distraction.
Nathan and I had a debate before we recorded about which look was better, his 70s or his 80s look. And the 80s look is so much more iconic with the mustache and the tight jeans and everything.
Very Freddie.
But oh my God, the 70s with his long hair, those cheekbones.
They could cut steel.
Those cheekbones. Yes.
Anyway.
So in 1980, they put out another album. This album was called The Game, which is one I grew up with. So I do love it, though it wasn't one of the more commercially successful ones.
And you may know The Game from the hit single, Another One Bites the Dust.
Bum, bum, bum. Another one bites the dust. You might not know this, or you might. I don't know your life. Another One Bites the Dust was a huge crossover hit with the fairly new hip-hop scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hip-hop was really new at this point.
It's got a good beat. It's got a really good beat.
It was a really bit like it was being played at hip hop clubs and stuff, and being mixed with
good,
different
crossover from like rock to R&B type of thing.
Exactly.
And, I mean, they were still on the decline at this point, and the Washington Post actually wrote about them.
They're not nice.
This was supposed to be the Queen comeback, but no such luck.
Ouch. It's a good album. I mean, Another One Bites the Dust is the only one that's like, that everybody knows, but it was still a really good album.
Newsflash, the Washington Post doesn't always get it right.
And also, since when is the Washington Post like your go-to music
experts? Yeah, like, come on, bitch.
Anyway, so as we mentioned, Freddie was really embracing the American gay culture, and he starts
party hardy.
I mean, he kind of starts to become a little bit of a cliche for a couple of years here. You know what I mean?
He gets into the
gay
scene.
rock star.
I think at this point, he's in Berlin. Like, I believe he's like transitioning,
maybe.
So he's getting the underground Berlin scene.
And he starts doing a lot of drugs and like not showing up for gigs. And this is one thing everybody should know about Queen. Most bands in the 70s, you could expect their members to maybe OD one night and stuff like that. Queen was not like that. They drank, but
they were consistent.
And they probably did coke from time to time, but they showed up for their shows.
Yeah.
Nobody showed up fucked up.
Very out of character for him.
So whenever he started really embracing this party life, it drove a wedge in between him and the other people in the band.
So let's not be like those other bands and break up.
They were like, let's not be a cliche here. Mm-hmm. We're trying to be legends. Come on.
Legendary.
But yeah, his behavior was becoming more and more erratic. He was going out to gay bars and staying out all night. Though there is a really fun story. I guess fun. I don't know. Elton John tells the story about after one night in, they were partying all night at a gay bar in New York. And so afterwards, Freddie throws a party at his hotel. And he hires both male and female models to lounge around naked. He hired little people to... It doesn't sound right. Anyway, he hired...
There's no politically correct way to say it.
Hired little people to carry around trays of cocaine. And then you could pick up your bit of cocaine and you would go snort it off the naked model. And that's a Freddie Mercury party, ladies and gentlemen.
Diva.
I don't know. When I was 19,
I would be at that party.
When I was 19, I probably would have wanted to be at that party. Right now,
But at 33, no thank you. I would rather go home and watch some Hulu.
I know. I stay out till 10:30. I'm like, SNL's on, guys. Let's go.
I gotta go home.
I gotta be at the gym at 6 in the morning. Let's go.
Yeah, so at this time, they put out another album called Hot Space.
And y'all, Hot Space.
What?
It was kind of a hot mess. I'm very proud of myself for that. No, but the one song you know off Hot Space is Under Pressure.
Doon 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 doon.
So Freddie was really trying to make an album that would be played at gay clubs, but ironically, I think this is like the only Queen album that you never hear songs from that played at gay clubs.
You don't.
Yeah,
because his manager at the time wanted to be like, let's make music that appeals to gay people, and
no,
he was like, no, it's not, no.
So, this album did poorly, and Freddie took it personally.
I don't.
So Queen takes a break because they have been in each other's faces, in each other's lives, nonstop for 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
You know what? I think they deserve a fucking break.
And guess what? They do Flash Gordon.
Somewhere in that break, they find the time to do the soundtrack to Flash Gordon, which is Flash. I don't know the words of Flash Gordon. Have you ever seen Flash Gordon?
No, I haven't seen the movie.
I haven't either. And then they do the soundtrack to Highlander, which I've also never seen. Have you?
Nope.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
I know every Queen album except for the ones they do for soundtracks.
So 2 years off doesn't seem like a long time,
but it is to them when they've been like back to back to back
for 12 years,
non-stop. And so 2 years they needed a break, and so everyone does their own thing for a couple of years.
So Freddie's relationships at this time
and his friendships. Let's talk a little bit of just about like his personal life, both romantically and just fun at this time.
Yeah, right. He meets a guy named Bill Reed, and
drama. I think everybody has that one like drama relationship in their life, and
totally.
This was Freddie's,
and it was completely crazy and volatile, and just
like,
not the right place.
One time they stayed up screaming at each other so bad that Freddie lost his voice, which was inopportune because Queen was performing on SNL the next day.
Maybe you've heard of it.
And like he barely got his voice back in time for the performance.
But he still performed.
Let's
because
be real. If nothing else, he is a showman. Mm-hmm. Him and Princess Diana were friends, which is fun.
So one night, a few of them were just sitting around
watching the Golden Girls.
How awesome.
Of course they were.
And they were like, let's go to a gay club because we're watching the Golden Girls.
Everybody besides Diana, it was already known that they'd hang out for a little bit and then go out. And just Diana wouldn't go with them because you couldn't take her anywhere.
Because cameras, flash, cameras, flash,
and
flash.
So they're all like, all right, honey. And they get ready to go out. And she's like, I really want to go out. And they're like, how? And so Freddie goes,
I know.
I know how.
Let's dress her up as a man.
So they dress her up in like the clone look.
Basically, aviator sunglasses. You get a little like stipple brush with like black thing and put a little beard on her.
They put a little beard on her, a little mustache on her, some aviators, a camouflage hat.
She looked like a man.
And they go out. They only stayed, like, it was such a rush just to even be out with her for like 20 minutes. They only stayed out for like half an hour or something. And then all went home. But like,
died.
How much money I would give every single cent in my bank account to have been part of that posse.
Been like, hey,
of Freddie Mercury and Princess Diana
with
out
aviator
on the town.
sunglasses. Yes, Queen. Yes. Thank you, please. And okay, once Freddie did a tour in the U.S. and he found out the guy that he was seeing at the time, named Tony Bastin, had been running around on him.
Like, this is literally how it went. He called Tony and was like, hey, Tony, I got you a ticket to come to the U.S. And Tony was like, cool, be there tomorrow. Tony lands in New York. Freddie meets him at the airport and goes, I heard you've been fucking around. We're done. Here's your ticket back to London. It leaves in an hour.
Ouch.
Cold-hearted snake.
Look into his eyes.
Uh-oh. Anyway, so he was actually supposed to collaborate with Michael Jackson, which how awesome would that be? An MJ Freddie collaboration. But their personalities clash so bad that it
Are
never
you surprised?
happened.
Are you
Not
surprised that they are the exact same type of queen?
One bit. Like, there's conflicting stories. Like, there's stories from MJ's people that say that Freddie would show up doing coke or Freddie would show up drunk, so Michael didn't want to work with him. But then there's like stories from Freddie's side saying that MJ was like such a diva that even Freddie couldn't handle him.
Both are equally plausible.
Yes, absolutely.
They are equally acceptable.
Oh, and we can't talk about his relationships without talking about his relationships with his cats, which we've already touched on a little bit.
Sorry, he liked a little bit of pussy.
No.
No, he didn't.
We mean actual cats.
Cats.
He had so many cats. He loved them.
Yeah, I remember like reading all the names of them.
Yeah.
They're great. Beautiful.
And then in 1985, he's right after Live Aid, he started his only other serious relationship besides Mary with a man named Jim Hutton, who was a hairdresser from London, and they were together for about 6 years.
Yeah, they really hit it off. I think the two were like peas and carrots, Jenny.
Yeah. So
they're back at the studio.
They take their 2 years off. Mm-hmm. They're back in the studio in 1982. The album was called The Works. It was fine. It got mostly fine reviews.
Ish.
Its big hits were Radio Gaga and I Want to Break Free.
So Radio Gaga is
where Lady Gaga gets her name.
Yes. So what I
Queen
read...
is so influential!
Right! Oh my god, you're so right! So Roger Taylor's kid looked at the radio and went, radio! And then
It was a baby, so he said Gaga, as babies do.
He just said radio, and then the parent was like, what? And he just pointed at the radio and went, Gaga. And then that's where that song was born.
It's a really interesting song, and it was a big hit for them when they hadn't had a big hit in a while. And it was just sort of like kind of like speaking to the generation about like what radio and pop music meant to them or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I Want to Break Free was a great song, but it was infamous in the U.S. because it got banned from MTV because all the members of Queen were in drag for it.
And it was so funny, like, what I read is that it's just a bunch of music executives being like, oh, it's not rock star. You're not a rock star if you're dressing in drag.
It's so fucking ridiculous.
Yes, you are a rock star if you dress in drag.
Also,
and you perform.
Also, look... Go and look at the video. They're not taking drag seriously.
No, they're not.
Because Freddie has his mustache.
They're camp.
They're just being silly. Honestly, the only person that kind of looks like a woman in this video is Roger Taylor.
Okay. Stop what you're doing right now.
Go look
up Roger Taylor.
In the I Want to Break Free video. That, honestly, I think that's why this video got banned, is because too many old, straight guys went... Whoa, I am way too attracted to Roger Taylor as a schoolgirl.
Look at the photo. I'm feeling Hermione.
God damn it, he is so pretty.
He is Hermione Granger, House Gryffindor. He's got the tie on that's the same colors as the Gryffindor. He is Emma Watson.
So
fabulous.
It's fucking stupid.
Fabulous.
This album does fine in Europe, but it tanks in the U.S. due to like lack of publicity from it getting banned from MTV.
So they've had like this whole not being able to break through and not being able to do
really,
that.
at this point, they're not the rock stars they used to be.
No, they're not. And they need an adrenaline shot.
They really do. And so there's this concert called Live Aid. Maybe you've heard of it.
And if you haven't, you need to look it up.
So they're not pulling the crowds they used to. And they're not really pulling the album sales they used to.
They're what we would consider washed up at this point.
So then this guy named Bob Geldof was putting together this huge concert called Live Aid in 1985 to raise money for the famine in Ethiopia. Like, it was literally like anybody who was anybody was playing at Live Aid. Bob Dylan was playing at Live Aid. Led Zeppelin was having their reunion concert at Live Aid. Like, just everybody.
And guess who showed up at Live Aid? Princess Diana and Prince Charles.
Oh, did they?
Yes, they did. They did show up there.
So
surprised.
Queen basically had to beg, borrow, and steal to get invited to Live Aid.
I think the connections with Princess Diana may have
maybe
played into that.
You know what? I hadn't thought about that. That's a very fair theory.
Probably played into that, being like, maybe he should sing at Live Aid.
Put my friend Freddie on. It'll be fine. But yeah, so they had to basically, like, them getting put on at Live Aid in Bob Geldof's eyes at this point was like, fine, throw a bone to these washed up guys from the 70s.
And as a band person, you're literally saying, okay, come up with a 20-minute set.
Yeah.
Get it done. Go with it. Run with it. And they're like, okay, we're playing at Live Aid. All right.
Again, if you've never heard of Live Aid,
do it.
Pause this right now. Google Live Aid.
It is considered the best live performance ever.
We'll wait. Google Live Aid. Are you back? What is the very first thing that comes up when you Google Live Aid? Oh, is it the Queen performance? Fuck yes, it is.
Oh my god!
Nathan just knocked over his drink.
Katie got me cackling.
Baby, you okay?
It had a lid on it.
Okay, girl. But no, they stole the fucking show.
That is an understatement. Not only did they steal the show, they ran the show.
So they come on after, I'm trying to remember who they played after. But it was all these like really big and contemporary bands or like old bands that were having a big, and it was Queen was supposed to be like
sidebar.
It was supposed to be the performance where everybody went to the bathroom and got drinks. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like, hey, you're having a good time, go over there.
They stole the fucking show.
They
performed, Rolling Stone still calls this the top concert performance ever, period, statement, like, end of the sentence. You know what I mean?
Surely
they paid the sound guys to put their volume up above like 20 decibels louder or whatever the decibel count is, or like of everybody else's.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they come out and
they play this badass performance in Live Aid.
They start with Bohemian Rhapsody, as you would do if you were Queen.
And Freddie hated performing that because
he knew. But they did an abridged version. And then they went into Radio Gaga. And then the performance still gives me goosebumps because, like,
Queen is fabulous at transitions.
They
are fabulous with being able to transition one song into another and make it feel like one big performance.
We could do a whole episode on their performance at Live Aid, so we'll cut it short. But what we're trying to get at is that Queen was has-beens, and after this one performance, they were rock stars again.
Yeah, it put them back on top, and they are famous again.
Yeah.
They get back into the groove of pulling out a new album every year like they used to do.
They did one in 86, 89, 1991. So it's not like every year, but more like every other year. They're getting older.
That's a lot of work.
Well, most of them have families at this point. They're getting older, but they're doing great again.
They're on top. So,
except in 1987, Freddie was diagnosed with this new disease called HIV.
Okay, it's not new to us right now.
But in 1987...
so sad.
It was, at the time, HIV/AIDS was a death sentence. There was no... Because now...
We have medication.
We have medication. You can live the rest of your life, or you can live another 20 years, or you can... Back then, it was, they were calling it gay cancer. And it was a death sentence, and you were going to die sooner rather than later.
So at the time, obviously, you're not going to step out on the street and be like, I have AIDS! Well, like, you're not going to do that.
I mean, you still wouldn't do that now. That would be weird. But he was already a really private person.
Yeah.
So it was very much he told only the people that needed to know. So obviously, he told his partner, Tim, and Tim got tested. And he tested positive. And then he told Mary, and
she didn't.
She was not. If she got tested, she was negative.
I don't think they had a sexual relationship.
They hadn't had a sexual relationship. Well, no, Mary had a husband at this time.
Yeah.
So
they didn't have a sexual relationship with Freddie.
He told all the members of Queen because they needed to know. They were his business partners, more or less.
So what I read is that they heard rumors about it, and they were like, And he literally pulled them into a room and was like, look, you already know what I'm about to say. You know what I'm suffering from. You know what the problem is. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to make music until the day I fucking die.
Mic drop. Bam. Of course what else would he want to do?
Artist.
And it's so beautiful that, his bandmates completely respected that.
They were like, okay.
They never talked to a single soul about it. They were
imagine getting a death sentence and being okay, I'm cool with that. No, I'm going to make music till I die.
Speaking of death sentence, let's discuss AIDS in the 1980s, specifically in America.
Tragic.
We're going to, bring it down to a bit of a sad point, and we won't spend a lot of time on this. We are going to do a Patreon episode just based on this, but people didn't understand AIDS. In the early 80s, it was literally called gay plague or gay cancer.
So it was basically, for someone who's not gay, it was like a way to weed out the gays. I hate to be mean about it.
I know, but year by year, the AIDS death toll were doubling or tripling. In the U.S., in 1981, there were 200 deaths. And then in 1982, there were 800 deaths. And then in 1983, there were 2,400 deaths.
Okay, let's do the math. Backtrack 3 times the deaths.
And,
bad situation.
And it's just
the president is ignoring it. You're getting rid of the gays.
Yeah, Reagan.
Oh, well.
No.
I don't think he personally felt that way.
Let's not. We'll go into it we'll go into it more in the Patreon episode. But the sad thing is that the president of the United States didn't come out and actually speak about it until 1985 when Rock Hudson died. And by then, there were 5,600 people a year in the United States dying of AIDS.
Ugh.
Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, let's not get into
this. If this was a disease affecting middle-class white people, this would have been tackled 2 years.
Time ago.
Yeah, 2 years before or whatever.
Long time ago. Freddie did not...
He was so private.
Yeah, he didn't want people to know about it. And he swore everyone to up and down to...
Don't tell us.
Don't say a soul.
I don't know if he told his family, his parents.
No, he didn't.
But they couldn't tour because if the United States had a ban, to come and visit the U.S., you had to test negative for HIV. And so if they tried to do a tour without going to the U.S., that would definitely raise eyebrows. And also, Freddie couldn't have swung that.
No.
But
in 1989, their album The Miracle was out, and they had toured with it without going to the U.S., and it would, definitely raise some eyebrows without doing that.
So Freddie has free time since they're not going on tour. And they've just put out this album, The Miracle, and he's just going to sit back and let it roll in. And then he's like, maybe what have I always wanted to do? Opera.
How surprising, as
so
you
he
do.
puts out an opera album, as one does.
Yeah. And in Barcelona, a duet album he puts out with this famous Spanish female opera singer.
I mean, is this the bougiest thing? He puts out an opera album.
Yes.
Bougie.
I mean, he's got like a 4-octave range.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you?
I mean, if you're trying to keep yourself busy and out of the public eye, put out an opera album. I mean, he said he wanted to bring opera to the masses.
It's pretty low-key. That's pretty low-key.
The press were not respecting his privacy, and they're like continuously asking questions, and it's not cool. It's not cool.
I read like some really brutal questions where he was coming home from like grocery shopping. You know, everybody needs groceries because everybody got to eat.
And they're like, Freddie, what's in the bag? Is it drugs? Is it medicine for your AIDS? What's going
How
on?
fucking painful is that?
But it wasn't just Freddie. It was like anybody in the band. Like Roger Taylor's just trying to go out with his wife or whatever.
How
and people were
horrible
like,
is that?
Tell me about Freddie. And Roger Taylor has this one story where like, yeah, he's just trying to go out with his wife. And this like reporter accosts him and is like, does Freddie have AIDS? And like, he doesn't know what to say. So he was just like, no, me and Freddie went to the gym yesterday. He's doing fine. Which obviously Freddie was not going to the gym, you know.
And there were a lot of like noted things where the bandmates like lied openly.
Oh yeah, they had to, I mean, but they've made a promise to their friend.
How could you not?
Exactly.
How could you not? If somebody said, I'm gonna die in a few months.
Or they're like, Freddie looks so gaunt in that picture. And so Brian May's like, oh, that was just a bad angle. Get better at taking pictures. You know, like...
Good friends.
Good friends.
Talking about my best friends.
Ooh, you're making me live, honey.
Sorry, I had to.
So in 1989, Freddie wasn't ready to stop.
No, he wanted to get back into
He
the
was
studio.
at death's door, but he's like, look, I've got nothing else to do except write songs. I've got all these songs.
That's my job in
and
life
everyone's
is to
like,
make music.
Everyone is like, are you up to this? And he's like, it's either sit around and thinking about dying or get in the studio and make songs. And so everyone's like, cool.
So
we'll make some songs.
He ends up traveling to Montreux, Switzerland to record his last album at the Mountain Studios. So if you have an opportunity, please look at this. Like,
gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, like it is picturesque, beautiful mountain town. He's recording music.
Nathan, can you top me off, boo?
Living his best life.
Ooh, you're making me live. No, but like, I mean, they've got all the money in the world. Of course they're going to go to the most picturesque place. And Freddie knew he was never going to perform again live, you know?
No.
It took lots and lots just to sing in the studio.
So this is where so I read, this is really sad. And it's very similar to what we talked about earlier, where Freddie recorded like a line of a song like 3 times because he knew that he wasn't going to actually be there in the final editing.
Yeah.
So he recorded a certain line in a song 3 separate times to make sure that, okay, I got the right take.
So during this recording session, they recorded this song called The Show Must Go On.
Please listen.
And if you don't know this song, you need to go back and listen to it and know that it's the last song that Freddie ever recorded.
And as a singer, it is a very difficult song to sing.
It's a difficult song to sing for someone who is healthy.
Yeah.
Freddie, like you said, he had to record it line by line because it took everything out of him.
Yeah, it was difficult.
And he would record a line and be like, let's do it again. And at the end of it, like, because the last stanza of the song, I mean, he does this line that is like, the show must go. Obviously, I can't do it. It is.
I'm
so
getting
what
teary-eyed. I'm getting misty.
what he had to do, like, they were like, Freddie, are you sure you can do this? And he took a shot and he was like, let's fucking do the thing, darling.
That kills
Let's
me.
fucking do the thing, darling.
He said,
you know what?
darling.
That's the tagline for this episode, Nathan. That's the tagline for this episode. We
Pound
just
and
fist bumped.
explode.
Let's fucking do the thing, darling.
Boom.
And he did it. And that was the last song he ever recorded.
So
and it's beautiful and it's haunting. And if you don't know the song, go listen to it right now.
Beautiful. Like, it just speaks to the artist that he was.
So he retires to his home in England.
So his bandmates and everybody surrounding him. I mean, he has AIDS. It's his last breath. Everybody knows what's going to happen. And one thing that I, like, really took to heart was, like, all his band and his followers.
Mary, Tim, all his posse.
Everybody's around him, and they're all trying to be like, how's the weather? How's this? And then he just literally was like, shh, I don't want y'all to make small talk. I just want to be around you, and I just want to feel my friends being there with me in my last breaths. Like, that to me speaks so much about Freddie and his artistry.
No, he just, like, he didn't want everyone just sitting around talking about unimportant things. He just wanted everyone to take in his last moments. So on November 23rd, 1991, Freddie made a public press release confirming that he has AIDS. It said, and this is abridged because, brevity. And it said, I wish to confirm that I have been tested HIV positive and have AIDS. The time has come now for my friends and fans around the world to know the truth. And I hope that everyone will join me, my doctors, and all those worldwide in the fight against this terrible disease. My privacy has always been very special to me, and I'm famous for my lack of interviews. Please understand this policy continues. So what he's saying is he's making the announcement, but he's also saying, don't come knocking on my door. I'm not going to talk to you about it.
Don't come knock on my door.
Oh, I won't be waiting for you. Okay, so that was on November 23rd. On November 24th, Freddie passes away.
This kills me because,
his longtime partner was with him.
And Roger Taylor was, like, a football field away. And he's going to visit Freddie at his house, and he gets a phone call. And in the phone call, they told him not to bother to come see Freddie because he passed away. Like, don't come. I'm not crying.
The only other episode that I nearly cried on was the Marie Antoinette, or maybe the Alexandra Fedorova episode.
I'm not going to let anybody else... No, all of them.
They're all sad, but oh my god. Poor baby.
Like, hits home. Like, it's very...
So, Freddie passes away, and there's, like, a huge mourning. So, if nothing else in the world, you cannot say Freddie was not generous.
Exactly.
He left $500,000 to his chef. He left $500,000 to his gardener. Because they had been his chef and his gardener for 10 years. And it's not like you can just pick up and... To his partner, Tim, he left $500,000 and a plot of land in Ireland.
But what happened to the rest of the money?
To Mary Austin, he left his mansion in Kensington, where she still lives. He left all his royalties. And at the time of his death... $75 million.
She also got his ashes that were to be spread undiscussed. And nobody knows.
She still, to this day, she's like, yeah, spread them. No, I'm not going to tell you where. Like, she still to this day will not tell anybody where.
My heart bleeds.
And what he said in his will, and he said, if I was a normal man and you were a normal woman, we would have been married. And it would all been yours anyway. Though a lot of people feel like Tim got gypped in it.
I don't think so. I think he can live a nice life.
He got $500,000 and a plot in Ireland.
He's not...
Invest that shit, you're fine. Well, he passed away.
He's okay,
He's passed away, but
his family's okay.
Did fine.
Everybody's okay.
But yeah, shortly after his death, there was a huge tribute. a huge live tribute.
And
Axl
Elton
Rose,
John.
Elton John, David Bowie.
David Bowie literally, like, at the end of it, kneeled in the Lord's Prayer, which I don't know if Freddie would be okay with
Because
that,
Freddie
but
was not
whatever.
Christian.
Whatever.
But maybe he was just showing, like,
Respect.
our depth of
Respect.
respect for him. Exactly.
And so I think that's, like, it was really, like, whenever I saw that tribute to him, I was like, oh, I just want to bawl my eyes out. Like,
and so then let's talk about the whole reason I know who Queen is. In 1992, less than a year after Freddie passed away, the movie Wayne's World came out.
Wayne's World.
My mom had the soundtrack. And the first or second song on the soundtrack was Bohemian Rhapsody. And 6 or 7-year-old Katie was like, no, play that song again. And my mom would, like, have me, like, when she had friends over, because I was 6 or 7 years old and knew every word to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes!
She would have friends over. It was like a party trick. It was like,
Yes, Queen.
watch my daughter that knows every word. And I was like, just gotta get right out of here.
Yes!
And so that's how I knew who Queen was.
And that's why you're fabulous.
That's why I'm fabulous. I do attribute Queen to the only reason I have good taste in music. Like, if my first favorite band ever had
Touche.
been, I don't fucking know, Backstreet Boys or something like that. My first favorite band ever was Queen, and that's why I am so cool.
Is that a question? No, it's a statement.
But, so Bohemian Rhapsody after Wayne's World hit #1 in the UK for the second time, becoming the only artist who has ever hit #1 2 times by the same artist. That many, like, the only song that's ever hit #1 2 times by the same artist that many years apart. And it hit #2 in the US, which is the highest it ever hit.
Get it, Fred.
Freddie actually famously said once, he was like, what do I have to do to break the top 5 in the US? Die? And the answer was yes! Sorry about it, Fred!
My heart is broken.
So let's talk about Freddie's legacy. What is he? He's a gay icon.
Artist.
Flamboyant, opera singer.
People will be talking about him for centuries. I genuinely think 200 years from now, they will be talking about Freddie Mercury's influence on music, on culture, on everything. Love it.
He is a legend. He is an icon. One last thing I want to say. We have set up a fund with the Mercury Phoenix Trust, which is Freddie Mercury's, what's the word I'm looking for? Foundation. Charity foundation. Freddie Mercury's charity foundation, which educates and helps people in countries that are affected by AIDS still. We want to raise $200. Our last episode we published in the first day got about 1,200 downloads. If each one of you donates 50 cents, we will meet that $200 in a day. So come on.
Do it. We love you. Thank you.
And we're going to post that in the show notes and on all our social medias. But really,
we love Freddie.
Nathan.
Cheers to the Queen of Queens.
Cheers to the Queen of...
Yes, Queen. Yeah.
Love you.